On today's episode of The Glue Guys,
The Nets are back.
That's all that needs to be said, Mike. Just go to the show.
welcome back to The Glue Guys. This is Mikey. Say hello, bro.
Hello.
Check us out on Twitter at BK Glue Guys.
Oh my gosh.
That's daily.com.
Mike,
The Athletic.
you're such a pro. You went from, I guess, like negative energy levels to that, and I gotta be honest, I wasn't ready for it. But Mike, it's a special day.
Get yourself behind the paywall at theathletic.com/glue-guys. A subsidiary of the New York Times. Brian!
Pro wrestling promo energy. For the YouTube audience,
Are back.
it's going to be a little low. I'll tell you that. The audio is going to be a little low on those for the YouTube audience, but that's okay.
The Nets are back, Bri.
We did it, Mike.
Daddy Joe.
We did it.
Daddy Joe whipped it out and said, "You're going to come back to the Nets, Kevin. You're
Wow.
gonna like it."
Wow.
No, that's not what happened. It's a partnership. It's an agreement.
Yeah. There's so much to get
Kevin
into,
Durant.
Mike. My gosh, where do we even start? Do we start with the summit, with the
Can
meeting?
we start with here? Can we start here?
Okay.
Did you think this day would come?
Well, should we
So
for anyone who doesn't know, do we have to actually tee this up at all?
break-
Yeah.
Hey, spoiler alert, whoever wants to be following along with this Nets season. The Nets and Kevin Durant and Rich Kleiman and the boardroom company
Yeah.
have all collectively joined together. And as outside the NBA on Twitter, James Herbert says, one team, bone goal. Remember the bone goal?
Mm-hmm. I do.
Classic Brooklyn Nets logo.
I do.
Slogo. Yes. Kevin Durant, maybe the best player in the NBA, has decided to remain with the Brooklyn Nets in a long-term partnership. He's removed his trade request after a meeting with Joe Tsai, Clara Tsai, and the guys he wanted fired,
Yeah.
Sean Marks and Steve Nash.
Just had to break a little bread. Like, they just had to break a little bread. It's all about the bread, ultimately.
Can you give me your emotions? How do you feel? What do you think? What's the vibes like in Brian Land?
You know,
right
I
now?
love when a bottleneck breaks. You know, I love when the levees break.
You're a classic fan of Levy's breaking.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You loved
I just love-
Katrina.
Yeah.
Wow, Brian's pro Katrina.
I like it when decisions are made one way or another and we come to conclusions. And, you know, I like it even more when it's harmonious conclusions and decisions. You know, Kevin Durant on the Phoenix Suns is gross. It makes no sense. I can't even picture him in that stupid purple jersey, purple and orange, with a Halloween court. It doesn't make any sense, Mike, and I don't like it, and I never liked the idea of it. I'll confession, the first thing I did was pulled up Suns Reddit. Still early for them, but they are seething and coping as you would hope to see. And so I'm sort of relishing in all of the butthurt to a certain extent, but also relishing in our own moment here. It's this whole off season has been this whole season, let's say, one crisis management situation after another, and you know, for all of the riffraff, all of the noise, I feel like we're in a pretty good position going into next year, provided that harmoniousness can last more than 2 weeks, which, you know, that's that we'll see. But for the interim, I'm incredibly enthusiastic about this next season. Like, who wouldn't be?
Well, it's so funny because, you know, I don't think I'm the only person that would think this. I'm going to read the statement
Yeah, please.
first. The following statement has been released by General Manager Sean Marks. I think we need to emphasize that it's allegedly from Sean Marks. It says, Steve Nash and I, together with Joe Tsai and Clara Wu Tsai, met with Kevin Durant and Rich Kleiman in Los Angeles yesterday. Subnote, Kevin Durant is bad for the environment. My guy's been flying from Europe to Turkey to L.A. to Seattle. Can we please
Well, if 35
save those carbon emissions?
if 35
my boy?
Ventures is putting money into, you know, climate initiatives, then I think it's a net benefit. Comes out in the wash.
I think they're big into NFTs and crypto, which is bad for the environment. So Kevin Durant, classic polluter,
Okay.
the king polluter, Kevin Durant. The statement goes on to say, we have agreed to move forward with our partnership. We are focusing on basketball with one collective goal in mind: build a lasting franchise to bring a championship to Brooklyn. At the bottom of it, there's a logo of the Brooklyn Nets and of the boardroom. Quick take, why is the boardroom's logo on the Nets statement?
Yeah.
Isn't that weird? Isn't that a strange... I'm not going to bring... This is going to be a happy pod. I'm just...
Yeah.
That's a weird...
I mean, that's a whole kind of portion of this is people are speculating like what is that? What does the partnership in essence mean? Because, those are two very different kind of corporate organizations. How do they... Are they allowed to do business? And if so, what? Anyways, it's just an odd partnership. But seems like they have a plan. And maybe that's the reason for this whole saga. Like, it's just really Rich Kleiman strong arming boardroom watermarks onto official NBA press releases.
This was all about getting that watermark on Nets Twitter.
Yeah.
that was literally this whole thing came down to, and they finally agreed to it. That statement, of course, there's interesting things beyond it on so many levels. I mean, one, you have the fact that it's from Sean Marks. Of course, we have the story from Shams Charania, what was it, 2 weeks ago, saying how KD wanted Sean Marks and Steve Nash fired. Both of those guys are at this meeting. And I'm going to tell you, those two guys don't show up to that meeting unless they know that this thing is going to happen, right? Like, this isn't a situation of Karen going to get that coat from Robert De Niro in Goodfellas. You remember when Karen's walking down the alley and he's like, keep going, keep going.
Yeah.
He's not going. They're not going there to get whacked. Probably the better analogy from Goodfellas is Pesci becoming a made man and then getting
whacked. Yeah.
God. Speaking of, we're going to do
spoiler.
a
Can you do
comparison.
spoiler alerts before this?
It's Goodfellas. Come on. So they knew going into that meeting that they would not be fired because they wouldn't be having a little brunch sesh, another Los Angeles brunch session, without knowing that they would, everything was going to be fine. I do want to point out Bleacher Report does not, in their little tweet about it, they say his trade request has been moved by Joe Tsai, Sean Marks, Steve Nash. Clara Tsai was there, so let's give respect to her.
Weird of them.
The statement itself, again, talks about a lasting franchise, obviously building towards a championship. Brian Lewis from the Post tweeted out that, like, make no mistake, this isn't just a last dance mentality. This is a commitment to continuing for years and years of basketball, right? Like the length of KD's contract.
They were like, we're either going to get a full-blown violent divorce or just, or just stay happily married. It's a very strange, like, why the binary?
It's like a bad Netflix dating show.
Yeah.
Where it's like a couple on the outs. It's either you have to stay married forever or get divorced.
Yeah.
There's no middle ground. There's no year.
Let's try what's the one with the pods? It's the pod one. That's the pods. Do you remember that?
Pod. Kevin Durant's in a pod.
Yeah.
And Joe Tsai's in another pod. I mean, it's amazing. Like, there's been so much. This offseason's been dominated by Kevin Durant, throwing out his trade request the second that Kyrie Irving signs back with the Nets and picks up his player option. From that moment till now, what's that been, about a month? I mean, if not, it's probably been a little bit longer now.
Feels like a lifetime.
I think it's been 2 months, right? Because that happened before free agency for Kyrie to do that. Kyrie did that right before free agency. That would have been June, 29th is when free agency started or whatever. So it's been a saga and a half. And throughout that time, we've oscillated between, oh my God, they're trading Kevin Durant. Oh my God, they're going to get the biggest trade package of all time, according to Bobby Marks, to maybe it's last dance mentality, to, oh no, Kevin Durant may hold out and make things very uncomfortable in the version of James Harden, to, can they even get Jaylen Brown and Derek White in a trade if they had to do a trade right now?
Yeah.
To now back to Kevin Durant is here.
Yeah.
And I know that there are so many problems. Like, problems just don't go away because you put out a statement. So there are probably 100% problems within the organization right now. The Nets are the most talented team in the Eastern Conference. if everyone plays and everyone's happy, right? I mean, it's so ridiculous. This Nets existence is the most freakish existence for any fan base, probably across all sports. The span of going from being a dumpster fire to having no future with having none of your draft picks, to being the best team in the Eastern Conference via talent. It's all decided because of one person who had a trade request that always seemed flimsy. He never had a place to go. He never had a second plan, to now deciding he's going to be here forever.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it should be a joyous day, no matter if there's still dissent in the locker room and there's still anger between KD and management on some level. Kevin Durant has committed to be a Brooklyn Net. The Nets are back, Brian. The Nets are back.
Want to play it again?
How? I will once I.
The Nets are back.
Nice.
We're going to do, in this episode coming up in a sec, we're going to do winners and losers from the KD indecision saga.
Okay.
But before we even get there, Bri, like, how happy should Nets fans truly be, right? Like, because we could be negative Nancy's. I'm choosing not to be a negative Nancy. I'm choosing just to be a positive Polly.
Okay.
And I'm just going about my day. Jennifer Aniston, Along Came Polly,
Yeah.
Philip Seymour Hoffman, Ben Stiller, classic film.
Yeah. I'm going to be the Ben Stiller in this situation for once, Mike, because I still feel, yeah, I know, I hate to do
God.
it, but this Kyrie Irving 1 year that's now facing a...
Shh, don't talk about Kyrie. don't bring his name up today.
Because that's
He's still on the team?
That's still looming, which that seems to have a temporary resolution. But anyways, that's not to say that fundamentally doesn't matter, because we have our linchpin. Anyone, it solidifies our competitive window for the foreseeable future, Mark. We don't have to ever really, and again, taking this at face value, because I don't want to do the whole thing where every 2 seconds we have to be like, well, this is what he thinks today, and there is like an annoying precedent that's sort of set with like waffling, Mike. There's a lot of waffling going on. We're at the IHOP. Do they have waffles at IHOP? They must.
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
They absolutely expand the menu beyond international pancakes.
Just the pancakes. I don't want this to just be a lingering thing, but it's hard as a Nets fan not to feel slightly scorned a little bit, or just maybe not scorned, just weary. There's like I would like. And I don't know what exactly needs to happen for me to feel safe in this relationship, but it won't take me long. I'll tell you that, Mike. It won't take me long. I'm pretty along for the ride to feel safe in Katie's arms. But this has been a weird summer for all of us. So obviously, super ecstatic that we get to be competitive again next year. We don't have to have a Cam Thomas, Ben Simmons season. That would be not as. We tried to talk ourselves into it because we were staring down we were negotiating with a tiger when our head's in its teeth. But now that we're not, it feels much better. It feels a little bit of, I feel some relief.
I mean, I feel more than relief.
Yeah.
I got preparation H on me right now. I'm feeling great.
Wow.
Instant relief.
That is the highest form of relief when you run for that bottle of Prep H.
And actually a little bit of elation.
Wow, euphoric.
A little elation.
Yeah.
I've never done preparation H, but I imagine it feels fantastic. I've never done shrooms and preparation H. That is, I hope to do both at the same time at one point in my life.
That's the way to do it. To be safe.
Because I mean, again, caveat. Kyrie Irving is still on the team. He only has a 1-year deal. Who knows? Ben Simmons is still on the team. He hasn't played basketball in a year plus. Kevin Durant famously called for the head coach and the GM to be fired.
Yeah.
But we've seen in basketball these things happen, and then teams can come together. And if everyone's healthy and there's no vaccine requirements, this team can win a champion. It can still win a championship. Here's what this team is. Those three, with Joe Harris, Seth Curry, and Patty Mills. It's TJ Warren. It's Royce O'Neal, Nick Claxton. You got Cam Thomas, Daron Sharp off the bench. Marcus Zagorowski. Actually, I don't know if he's in with Kessler Edwards. And not to go too far ahead, I do wonder if there's going to be a trade because the team has 3 shooters, and like, do they decide to then? I'm not saying that Joe Harris, that was the demand that KD had, but I wonder if they're going to trade one of the shooters to get another piece onto the team.
Yeah,
because they have enough shooting technically.
And
but
we're missing a little playmaking. More of a traditional backup point guard seems to be the thing that's
a Donald Sloan. We need to call D Sloan every time.
And who isn't ready for this conversation that happens who's going to guard Joel Embiid, Mike? That's the we need.
I can't talk about that.
You ready for that?
Let's do this. Quick break. Coming back. Winners and losers of the KD indecision saga 2022. And we're back. Brian, winners and losers. Here are the people we're going to tick through. Kevin Durant, Joe Tsai, Sean Marks, Steve Nash, Rich Kleiman, Kyrie Irving, Ben Simmons, Nets fans, the rest of the NBA, and honorable mentions. Let's start with Kevin Durant. Is he a winner or a loser?
It's funny because that's the hardest one to pick. It's really I in the annals of history here, I'd be really interested to hear about what his perspective was on this whole situation. I don't know, you saw that thing from Chris Haynes on a Sirius XM show talking about some vague broken promise.
Should we pull that up now, Brian?
Let's play it.
KD felt like a promise was broken. Somewhere along the line, I think KD felt like a promise was broken. He was the first one who committed to the team long term. He did the 4-year extension. Somewhere along the way, something happened to where he felt like a promise was broken. And that's where the lack of trust began to seep in. Now, I don't know if that pertains to Kyrie as far as the promise being broken. I don't know if that pertains to James Harden, whatever he went through. But somewhere along the way, trust was broken. I believe KD.
Okay.
So that was Chris Haynes this morning. So this is before the news came out.
Do you want to speculate on this broken promise at all? Is that worth?
Was it the boardroom watermark?
Yeah.
Is that
we were
to the boardroom watermark?
we were expecting every press release to come out of the Brooklyn Nets Twitter to have a watermark. The James Harden, what could be possibly there? Let's just take them one at a time. How could we? Is there a promise that was broken to James Harden?
Maybe it's James Harden. Maybe it's the Kyrie extension. Like, hey, we will give you Nets say we will give you an extension, right? Like, Kyrie will get the extension to match you, and that promise maybe was given like a year ago at this time, before there was a vaccine mandate, and when both Harden and Kyrie told Sean Marks that they would sign an extension with the team. Sean Marks was so confident because he came out publicly during this last summer, 2 summers ago, I should say a year ago, and said, I am very confident we're going to get a deal done with all 3 of our stars, essentially. And Kevin Durant had already signed that extension. James Harden and Kyrie Irving did not, right? And so we talk about this promise broken. It's just so vague. I mean, this is no shots at Chris Haynes at all. Like, I appreciate him bringing any morsel of information to us. Where do you get the information from? Like, did he text Rich Kleiman? And Rich Kleiman's like, promise was broken.
Yeah.
And then you're Chris Haynes, or I was about to say Sean Haynes, which is one of the co-hosts of Smartless, fantastic podcast.
Will and Grace.
You're Chris Haynes. And you're like, okay, what was the promise? And then you just get ghosted after that. Like, how do you not have? What's the follow up? Not saying that he didn't follow up, but get that follow up in there.
Yeah,
we have to. If there's a promise broken, we got to find out what that promise was for the team.
So that aside, I mean, like, look, if KD went to war over promises broken, and that was part of his reflexive demand was like, okay, you break a promise and I go to a different team. In that context, it's an L. In another context, I think... What was that?
Oh, sorry. This is going to be Shams Charania talking about what happened between the Nets and do you
want to just play that next? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, this is from the Pat McAfee show.
Sides looked around, and I wrote a piece yesterday that had all the offers, everything laid out, all the interest. And there was no one that was stepping up to the capacity that the Nets had. The Nets had a crazy asking price. They wanted an all-star. They wanted multiple high-level rotation players. They wanted all your draft picks. And that asking price just was not met. The Boston Celtics put forth an offer. The Grizzlies made an offer. The Atlanta Hawks made an offer. Every team, Phoenix, Golden State, it goes on and on. Teams called, inquired, but no one was willing to meet that asking price. And from everything I've been told, that the outcome of that meeting yesterday between Kevin Durant, his business manager Rich Kleiman, everyone from the Nets, Sean Marks, Steve Nash, ownership, they all agreed that it's in everyone's best interest, both sides, to move on. No trade was happening. It was clear. And so for Kevin Durant, if he really wanted to get out of Brooklyn, this was going to get even uglier. You had training camp coming up in 1 month.
Okay, that was Sean's.
Can we do a quick shout out to Rudy Gobert and that because I really
Why is that?
because I think just how egregious that trade was in Utah's favor just set a precedent for this summer. That then if you follow it up with Kevin Durant, the optics for everybody involved, like you can't get less than what Rudy Gobert got of all people, and they got a king's ransom. So just quick shout out to Rudy.
Yeah, I mean it's Rudy Gobert, not even just Rudy Gobert, DeJounte Murray, because like if the Nets could have gotten the DeJounte Murray package, which would have been I don't know like 3 first-round picks, 2 swaps, they could have got John Collins in that like. If all the picks that DeJounte Murray got, or that the Spurs got for Murray, if that plus John Collins, Kevin Huerter maybe would have been in that deal too. Like you could have gotten DeAndre Hunter, all the young Hawks, not Trae Young. I would have been okay with that package. But because the DeJounte Murray trade happened, because the Rudy Gobert trade happened, the Nets are left with like the Jaylen Brown, Derek White offer.
Yeah.
But that's what's weird about this is that why does Kevin Durant care about it? Like because his trade request doesn't have to be rescinded because there's not good trade offers for him. Like ultimately it only helps him if the trade offers are bad for him because then whatever team he's going to isn't gutting themselves to get him.
Yeah.
Right? The whole thing from the very beginning.
But you do initiate a game of chicken in that world. Like and it maybe in the course of this conversation, it was laid bare that the Nets were willing to play that game of chicken to the hilt, and I think they're well within reason to. I would sit KD a whole long time in order to get what I want out of that situation if I were the Nets position, which obviously that's like the crux of this thing. That's their leverage.
I'm going to label. So Kevin Durant, it's the most tenuous choice between winner or loser. Short-term loser, long-term winner, because like right now he kind of looks silly, right? Like he had this trade request. He was not Machiavellian in his decision to do it. It was very it felt very impulsive. Mm-hmm. There was no plan, right? If you're going to request a trade and you're that level of superstar, you have to know where you want to go. Yeah. And you have to know if you can get there, right? Like, when LeBron and D Wade and Bosh all teamed up, they all had this plan. Miami had a plan to get them all together. Anthony Davis, when we wanted to go to the Lakers, there was a clear plan to go there with LeBron and get that all figured out. I mean, even mostly James Harden knew he only wanted to go to 2 places, Philly or Brooklyn. And it's for some reason he chose Brooklyn, or we're told he chose Brooklyn at that time.
Yeah.
Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving wanted to go to Brooklyn together. He never had a plan. So short term, he looks kind of silly. People are making fun of him. He's already attacking people on Twitter for saying that he's petty and did all this for attention and all that stuff. But long term, he's a winner because he comes back. He plays with Kyrie, for allegedly a guy he wants to play with. If Ben Simmons is actually good, that team is going to be very good. And if Kevin Durant got traded, unless if the place he went to and he won like 2 or 3 championships at that place, his legacy would always be the disgruntled superstar, the guy who was never happy.
Yeah.
And now he has a chance to, if he wins just 1 championship in Brooklyn, which is amazing, right? Like, let's not discount the chance that it is a championship. His legacy will be a guy who won in Golden State, yes, but then built his own winner in Brooklyn. That's his franchise. He built this team, and he won throughout all this adversity. And, a lot of people are comparing it to when Kobe had his trade request at one point in his time with the Lakers. He almost got sent to the Bulls. He almost got sent to, I think, another team. It didn't happen. Maybe Detroit, I think, was one of the other teams. And he went back and won championships with the Lakers. Like,
Yeah.
Kevin Durant's legacy, as much as he may or may not care about it, is more intact by being a Net.
I agree, and I also I think like to give Twitter people obviously are Twitter people, and they're gonna Twitter people. But I think if anything, the fact that he's willing to do a compromise at all is a new data point to suggest that it's like to rail against a guy for being like, well, you're making a bad decision, but at least you didn't waffle on it. Like that's not admirable, right? You want to waffle on your bad decisions, and if you come back to the other side, that's laudable. We should be appreciative. We should be thinking of that as like a high-minded, dispassionate response.
It's a sign of growth.
Yeah.
It's when you get in an argument with your spouse and you in the moment know you said something dumb.
Well, or that like you have the decision to say something dumb. You can either like fan the flames, or you could be like, hang on, like let me do this the right way.
Pull back for a second.
Let me do this the right way. And there you
choose
have
not to take out the knife, right, and stab with whatever verbal.
Mike, are you guys okay out there? What's going on?
No, but during an argument with your, you have an array of options.
Yeah. The rhetorical
right?
knives. Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you ever seen West Wing. I think it was one of the first few episodes. Not to spoil West Wing, but President Bartlett's like doctor gets sent overseas for one mission, and the doctor is killed in some act by a foreign country. And President Bartlett comes out very angry and says, I want the options. And they give him a range of options, and they're all reasonable, proportional responses. And President Bartlett, because he has a personal connection to one of the people that died in the act, wants a disproportionate response. And when you're in an argument with your spouse, you have disproportionate responses available to you, which could be explosive and damage relationships.
Yeah.
Kevin Durant had the disproportional response.
Yeah.
He could have continued with his trade request, dug in, caused ruckus. All the things that we were being promised were going to be delivered to us. Ultimately, he came back to the table, literally came back to the table with Joe Tsai, Sean Marks, and Steve Nash, and Clara Wu Tsai, and said, hey, I know I said what I said. Let's put some boardroom watermarks on some stuff, and let's get this thing moving.
Yeah. Let's
get that chug in the right direction.
Cook that partnership up. Let's get the graphic design team working overtime.
We'll send you some mock-ups.
Yeah.
Just make sure the boardroom is much bigger than the Brooklyn Nets logo.
Yeah.
That's very important to us going forward.
But no, it's a real compromise, and it's nice to see. And I think that anyone who's, I urge KD to, continue on his benevolent journey and not pay attention to the Twitter people who are now getting after him on waffling, because waffling is divine behavior, Mike. Everybody should be waffling all the time. Okay, that's the way to do it.
Being dug in is bad.
Waffling is closer to godliness. Okay.
Winner, Joe Tsai. Big Daddy Joe.
That's a big fat W. That's a 360-degree W.
Big Daddy Joe. He had two public negotiations this offseason. And his name is thrown in as being the primary negotiator, right? Mm-hmm. Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. Kyrie played his little game where he was requested a trade but didn't request a trade, was looking for a place to land, was trying to get to the Lakers, was trying to get anywhere else. The market on Kyrie was so bad, it was only the Lakers that would take him in. And Kyrie, a guy as good as Kyrie, rarely ever accepts just the one-year player option with no extension. Big Daddy Joe stood.
Yeah.
Big Daddy Joe stood up to Kevin Durant and said,
Diamond hands.
Diamond hands.
Yeah.
He stood up, which I now know what that means.
Yeah.
He stood up to Kevin Durant, one of the greatest players of generation, leaking out to Shams Charania that he wants Steve Nash and Sean Marks fired. Joe Tsai immediately comes out and tweets, hey, I'm standing behind our team, standing behind our dudes, our guys. People make fun of Joe Tsai for tweeting that out. In the end, again, over a brunch, I believe it was brunch or lunch. I have to get my sources correct on that. I apologize for not knowing directly. Big Daddy Joe came out and was like, Kevin, let's stay together.
Yeah.
Let's Al Green this shit. Let's stay together. Big Daddy Joe coming through. Speak softly and carry a big stick. That's
Really?
my guy Teddy Roosevelt. And that's my guy Josiah.
Really? I mean, can't say enough good about it. For all of the, all of the noise, the results are quite good, Mike. We can't ignore the results. And I've always been waiting to see this. You don't get to be billionaire, executive at international conglomerates without having some pretty sharp elbows, okay, and getting what you want, okay. And I got to tell you, that was it got hairy there for a second, but it's been just a massive W of a summer for Joe, and I feel safe in his hands.
And I do want to say this: as much as I was kind of like joking about the whole Big Daddy Joe, blah 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 thing, like that vibe. I'm not saying Josiah is an amazing owner. We don't know enough information yet, right? They still have to win a championship. This season could be completely dysfunctional, so it could go multiple different ways wrong. But a lot of other owners would have caved. A lot of other owners would have just said, "Fuck this shit. We're moving on." Right? Like, I'm not dealing with this. I've got my portfolio of
the ego would have gotten in the way.
And ultimately, he remained steadfast in his belief that I'm going to not fire anyone. I'm going to maintain who I want. And I'm going to get these superstars to continue to play for this team because I know it's the best situation for them. And this is a huge test for an owner. Like, it's, again, you talk about ego. It's like, it is a very big ego play to say, F off. Mm-hmm. I'm a billionaire. I don't need to deal with this bullshit. I'd rather just make money.
You're like a sailor today. I'm like, you're fired up.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
And so this is a big test, and he passed this test better than most owners. And I remember, I think 2 weeks ago when all this KD saga was coming out, and there was a report that the reason why Kyrie and KD did not sign with the Knicks in 2019 was because they did not believe that they could mold the franchise in their image in the way that they could with the Nets. And the implication of that was that, like, the Nets are pushovers, that Josiah would give up everything he could for Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. And he did do that for a time, but let's not act like this has been a firm hand. He has caved. He caved on the vaccine issue, and he's hired their friends as assistant coaches and all that stuff. But what would James Dolan have done in this situation? It would have, most owners, it would have been ugly, and James Dolan would have been horrific. So let's not try to compare Josiah to James Dolan in any sense where it makes Josiah looks negative compared to James Dolan, right?
Let's not.
Winners and losers: Sean Marks, Steve Nash.
I like that they're pairing them up together. I got to tell you, I think it's a W for Sean Marks and an L for Steve Nash. That's sort of how I feel.
You. Explain the L first.
I've often thought that, so now this is going to fall onto, or not this whole rigmarole, but going into next season, in the last dance to run it back Nets, there's going to be a very close magnifying glass on the actual basketball product on the floor now that we have still elite personnel. I am hopeful that Steve Nash can have good results and be an exacting floor general. I am unsure of that, and the responsibility is gonna fall onto him quite a bit. So not L in the sense that what happened here involved him directly. Well, outside of the fact that he was, directly picked by Kevin Durant to have him lose his job. That was bad. But I think there's a pretense to it that goes into next season. So it's more of a future L. Is I'm predicting a future L. I think though, in terms of what actually happened here in terms of personnel management, I give it a little bit of a W to Sean Marks, because again, he's part of the Josiah sort of mechanisms of personnel, contractual buying, or signing agreements with players. And in this case, we dodged a bullet. They called their bluff. They were shooting blanks. And so in that sense, they did a good thing. And potentially they worked the media to the extent that it was they really put it out on the airwaves. There's not good trades out here. There's not going to be good trades. There's nothing to be done here. We'll, hold fast until there is something. So I don't know to what extent that moved the needle from Durant's side, but in general, as personnel decision making goes, this is good. Now a lot of the responsibility is going to fall onto the actual basketball product side of the management team, and I have some lingering doubts, I guess, about that.
The scarecrow-like shoulders of
Yeah.
one Steve Nash, like the very brittle shoulders.
And you know what? Actually, he runs around the neighborhood now and again. I see him running. He's a large person. You actually like the way. Yeah. He's like noticeably
he's like 6'1", 6'2", right?
He's like 6'3", I think.
Yeah, that's very large.
He's like I was like, that's an athlete. So, anyways, but yeah, I don't know. Do you agree with any of that?
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting. So again, reading the Brian Lewis story, the Post reported that it was just Steve Nash that Kevin Durant wanted gone, not necessarily Sean Marks. It was Shams who reported that it was both.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when Joe Tsai defended, he seemed to defend the entire staff, right? So Sean Marks can remain in his high above ivory tower and avoid Kevin Durant. Steve Nash cannot.
Yeah.
I agree with you. The pressure is completely now on Steve Nash to make it work. I think he's going to have a very short leash regardless, because you can't keep getting chances with this level of talent, even if the talent's not available all the time. That just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me if Steve Nash is fired at some point this year. If things don't go well at the beginning, then they're just going to make a move pretty quickly, I feel like. And Mark Jackson would be hired because the boardroom runs things now.
Oh, my gosh.
I know. But
so you agree with me?
I don't also hate that Steve Nash could get fired.
Yeah.
And I do like Sean Marks. So I do think it's a W for Sean Marks. I think it's an L for Steve Nash that he's going to be under this pressure, but it's also kind of a win because, hey, you get that next chance. And you get a chance. I mean, I can't overstate this enough. The implication in that statement and from other reporting is that it's not just Kevin Durant one last dance. It's really Kevin Durant recommitting to the franchise. It's not even the easiest way they could have done this is saying Kevin is going to be there for training camp. He will be committed to when he's on the Nets, but his trade request remains, right? They very easily could have left that out there, and you could have said that this is the compromise that we're going to do. Kevin, come play for this team. It's in the way that you and I talked about when we said we had one of our glue guys theater sessions, and it was like, Kevin, we will try to trade you, but please play. It's going to increase your trade value if you play. We're not going to get a good deal now. It's very easy for Kevin Durant to have done that, but he is making a commitment. Now, how firm is that commitment? No one can predict that, but they are coming out directly saying this is more than just trade request remains. Please let me go. No, it's happening right now. I'm just reading a Bill Simmons tweet where he says, "What the hell happened to Stephen A. during his vacation? He just said a big three of KD, Kyrie, and Simmons with Mark Jackson coaching would win the East. Can we get Stephen A. some orange juice and maybe a warm towel?" Other people are picking up on the Mark Jackson is probably going to be the coach of this team at some point, which is terrifying, but I'm not going to talk about it. Winner or loser, Rich Kleiman, don't really care that much, right? Who gives a shit?
I'm going to throw Rich Kleiman and Kyrie into the same boat, actually, as I appraise this, if that's okay.
Tell me that.
Because I think it's who's missing from this meeting and who's there. It's like Rich Kleiman's there with KD and Kyrie sort of sitting at the kiddie table throughout this whole thing.
Ooh, I like that.
And so here Durant is with his business partner, manager, who with their emerging, global brand VC fund, kind of, discussing big opportunities, partnerships that go on for years with a NBA team, making difficult decisions based not on emotions, but on, business incentives. And Kyrie is not part of that conversation. He's in orbit somewhere else. I mean, they're obviously they're doing things together. They had a practice or whatever with Karis LeVert in LA. The Nets Kingdom Twitter was posting. But anyways, in terms of the big boy decision making stuff, that's future of the franchise. There is a person who is missing from the table, pretty conspicuously, and there's a person that's not missing from the table. So I'm not trying to Game of Thrones this too much, but there is
Or House of the Dragon.
or House of the Dragon. It or you,
Have you
have
watched
you?
it?
I did not. I'm not gonna. I'll wait till here. Is it good?
It's good. Yeah.
Is it actually good,
it's
Mike?
Game of Thrones. It's Game of Thrones.
Written-
It's the same thing. There's no difference.
All right.
Just more dragons.
Oh.
There's an orgy scene.
All right.
I didn't think they would
Say
do
no
it.
more. Say no more.
There's a gruesome death.
Okay.
Fantastic.
I'm in. But anyways, does that register?
That is so smart, Brian.
Oh wow, thank you.
I don't think many people have said that take, and I love it. The fact that Kyrie Irving, who, when the season ended, he had that the end of the season press conference, how he was going to run the franchise with Kevin and Sean, and how as we go through the summer, and he has this whole mess of the trade requests and all that stuff. And, I didn't actually request a trade. I'm going to take the 1 year. I'm going to recommit myself to the franchise. He's not there at that meeting. Now he could say, I was doing something else. But also, if you really are that important to the franchise, you should be there. And he wasn't there. I think there's a definite, before when it was sort of like the question of Kevin Durant and Kyrie are running the franchise, and Kevin was always a little ahead of Kyrie, but they were both very important. There is a definitive tier.
Yeah.
And I don't know how far down Kyrie really is in that tier.
I mean, he's not on Ben Simmons' tier, but
Yeah,
he's,
Ben Simmons may be more important on the pyramid of the Nets.
Yeah.
It's like Josai and Clara Sai. There's Sean Marks in his own little brick.
Yeah.
There's Kevin Durant and Rich Kleiman in the boardroom company, 35 Ventures et al. In their brick. And then it's like Ben Simmons, it's Patty Mills sometimes.
Yeah. Just throw Nash in there. Yeah.
It's Steve Madden. Like Steve Madden's very high up on the list.
He is on the
then
Megatron an awful lot.
And then Kyrie Irving's like kind of
he's in
a
there.
brick that's not really glued together with the rest of them. There's no mortar.
It's just that the wheels have, or not the wheels have fallen off. It's just that he hasn't comported himself as a serious mover and shaker, future franchise, big picture thinking guy, and as such, you're not at the big boardroom meeting, unfortunately. And you hate to see it, but that's how these things go.
But it's a win ultimately, because the only way Kyrie is going to regain the power that he may want in the NBA, where the power to make his own choices, because right now he doesn't have that power, is if he plays really well this season with Kevin Durant and Ben Simmons. And if they have a great season, they compete, get to the Eastern Conference Finals or whatever, Kyrie will be a free agent, and he'll be able to make the decision that he wants. If he has one good season where he is committed and doesn't float away and actually plays basketball games, the rest of the NBA is going to fall in love with him again, and he will get whatever contract that he will want. Maybe it's with the Nets.
Can I do a quick little addendum, though, to Kyrie's thinking about stuff? I think he is right about a few things, as anyone is. And, in his thing about...
Interested to hear what few things you're talking
I was listening to your boy Andrew Huberman. Do you know who that is? He's like a podcaster guy who does he's a neuroscientist thing. And he was talking about how in the NBA, players are using lots of testosterone treatments because by... somewhere between the beginning of the season and March, their T levels fall off a cliff from lack of sleep. And it's very torturous. As a guy with a lot of kids, you understand what sleep deprivation does to the body, right? Wreaks havoc, Mike, on your endocrine system.
As my my sleep doctor, Helene Emslem,
Wow,
shout out Helene.
Big shout out.
Sleep is everything.
Yeah.
Sleep, it's.
And I think Kyrie's on the forefront of being like, hey, we're playing too many games and it's affecting our health. And, to that extent, I'm with them. Look, I trust.
Did Kyrie's aunt or stepmother get to you?
She did.
Are you
I
gonna hold
have
water for Kyrie all season?
So, which is my next point, Kyrie's new sleep app, which is called...
He has a sleep app?
No, I'm just kidding. I'm I'm pretending to have made a backdoor deal. And you bought it. Hook, line, and sinker.
What a noob.
Yeah.
So is Kyrie? I think he's a winner. I think he's a winner by simply the fact that he now understands his future for the next year. It's playing with Kevin Durant, a guy he likes to play basketball with, on the hometown team that he wanted at one point to play on, and he will give himself a full year with Kevin Durant to rehab whatever value he needs to rehab before he can, continue to avoid the basketball game.
Yeah.
Ben Simmons, winner or loser?
Incomplete grade. I don't know.
Does he care about winning? Does he care about losing? Does he care? Does he give a shit?
Winner. I mean, he's going to play meaningful basketball, right? He gets to actually hit the ground running. If he was on part of like a rebuilding team, that would be a disaster.com for Ben Simmons, I think.
I think it goes both ways. Like, I think it could have been good for him to be on a really bad team because no one would give a crap.
Mm-hmm.
Like, whatever. And then he could have just put up like 25-5 every game, and no one would actually pay attention for him, and the team wouldn't be on social, national TV and all that stuff. But if you're going to construct a team that would be best for Ben Simmons to play on, it's Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Joe Harris, and Seth Curry, right? Like, that's the best possible Ben Simmons team besides the Golden State Warriors without Draymond Green. So this is good for him if he cares about basketball. It's bad for him if he really is afraid of attention. I don't think he's afraid of attention.
No, he seems to like a certain kind of attention. He likes the general
he
spotlight.
Likes being around, as you say, young kids. As he likes to.
What are you accusing me of?
You were saying that he likes to go on his tour of young children around New York City. This is what you said,
okay.
Brian.
Okay, the way that you're framing it makes it sound super nefarious, but
that's how you said it.
Okay.
It's your words.
I am being taken way out of context here. He's doing charity work with school children and Boy Scouts. This isn't getting better. This is getting worse. Don't give me that look.
Nets fans, it's a W. We're winners, right? I mean,
we stay winning. We stay winning. Come on, Nets fans.
Ultimately, the Nets are back, right?
Yeah, that's all that needs to be said. I mean, no, it is.
We were staring down the barrel of praying that
God. The extent to which this would have been like a laughing stock, like disaster, though. I mean, it would have been so bad. Yeah,
because it would have been the franchise. Even if Sean Marks could have pulled off like a trade for Jaylen Brown and Robert Williams or something, it still would have been the dynasty that never was. And the Nets are a joke, and they'll never get it together. The franchise is cursed. They had Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden. We forget that James Harden was on the team at one point, and the team hasn't won anything. They haven't got past the second round, all that bullshit. Now at least we have another year to see if it happens. There's still this not even a 10% fear. It's going to be much bigger than that by the time the day is over. I still think the likelihood that the season is a debacle on some levels is pretty high, just because, again, the problems aren't going to magically go away because the boardroom approved of a statement from Sean Marks. But you have Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and I think if they start playing basketball together and winning's going to solve everything.
Yeah,
that's what
they
say.
The
bomb on top.
That's the Tiger Bomb.
Losers, the rest of the NBA.
Yeah, suckers, suck on that. And it's specifically Phoenix Suns fans who were I didn't know that they were as toxic as they are, but holy Lord, am I excited to take a dump on those guys because they were real annoying on Reddit.
Quick thing. Should we do Glue Guys Theater?
I think we probably hit max time here.
I don't think I have the energy to pull
really
off the level that I want.
I mean, there's 6 characters to play. We have to write a script here.
Can I ask you a serious basketball question?
Please.
Are the Nets the best team in the East?
Well, this is a complicated question because there's the on paper version and then there's the post calamitous offseason version where, everyone's frayed and sensitive and butthurt and emotional. There's an argument to be made that on paper, although our depth is a little goofy at some point, we have some decent parts. Still have a lot of things to resolve with the roster in general. That's for future podcasts, though, Mike. But I could see that argument on paper, but I would say we're just in a weirdly sensitive spot at the moment, just based on just how crazy this offseason was. So I would say kinda, but not really.
Yeah, we're a bit paper tigers.
A little bit.
And I would like to see us origami ourselves into a more threatening.
Into a swan. Swans are threatening. I don't know if you've ever been around a swan. They're very territorial. and they will
Oh, my
come
God,
after you. Yeah.
Yeah, they're.
Don't
you
sleep
don't
on
want
the
to put your
swamp.
kids near a swamp.
No,
They will
no.
bite their nose off.
Yeah. And they've got little razor tongue things. Have you ever seen the inside of a swan mouth? It's crazy.
Too many times.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Mike, where do they find us?
They can find us on Twitter at BKGlueGuys, netzilly.com. I mean, this is just a final point. Again, joy. Like, again, there's going to be drama. This team's going to be consumed by drama. But we get to watch Kevin Durant in a Nets uniform at least for a game before he requests a trade again. If Ben Simmons plays basketball and Kyrie Irving is motivated to prove himself again, this team could be so much fun. It could be so much fun to watch. It could be exhilarating. I really hope they can hire Mike D'Antoni in some way again. Or I don't know.
I know. Me too. That would be the best.
That would be the move. I would really like to see. One thing looking forward is now that Kevin Durant is back in the fold, are there moves that they want to make kind of quickly? Not with coaching, but like, is there a trade that now they're going to be considering? Okay, we have all these surplus of shooters, and maybe we want another defender in here. We want the Embiid stopper or all that baloney. The team now has an idea of what they can do. The Royce O'Neal trade makes a lot more sense.
It does. They're betting on themselves the whole time, Mike. That's what that says to me.
I think the team is very stout, and I guarantee
stout.
We're gonna
you said
stout.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, like a beer.
Yeah.
But like it's a different version of the word. You remember like when they went to San Diego and they had like last season, and there was apparently like a team bonding thing at Josiah's mansion in San Diego. We really need a team bonding
experience.
We need the form of
yes.
Remember the Titans when they go away to sleepaway camp and they all start singing Motown songs.
Yeah.
We really need Ryan Gosling to be imported and to start singing, whatever.
I've been talking about that peyote desert, spirit animal trip for a long time. I think I got to tell you, ayahuasca seems pretty treacherous. I'd go peyote, to be honest. Ayahuasca makes it look like you barf really hard.
Don't they drink? Aren't they both? It's a drinkable.
Peyote is like the little like cactus capsule things. I think. I think you actually snort it.
I thought you still drink.
You definitely drink ayahuasca.
Too.
You definitely drink ayahuasca. That's true.
Because I remember I was doing a Phil Jackson thing, and I'm pretty sure you drink.
Okay, I think you can drink at anything.
You could probably consume peyote in multiple different ways.
That's true. That's true of like every drug. You can drink heroin, Mike, if you want to. If you want to get crazy. This is probably stuff that we don't need to be talking about on the show.
It's from. Why? It's legal.
Oh, okay. Heroin.
It can be chewed or soaked in water as a tea.
Yeah,
so
chewed.
Chewed. It's a gum.
Cactus gum. Mike, Discord.
Hey, Cactus gum.
Netsdaily.com. That's one place to find us. The Athletic. That's another place to find us. Twitter is a place to find us. You can't miss us there. Discord.gg/glueguys. The community is in fuego, Mike. So if you're not there and you're a big Glue Guys fan, you're missing a huge part of the community. Okay? FYI. Mike, thanks so much for having me on your big show.
Thanks, man.